Charan Singh Sapra, let's go to you. Explain, given the fact that she's been in and out of the party, given the fact that she's had an acrimonious past relationship with Sonia Gandhi, given the fact that she's publicly questioned the Gandhi family and its dealings, including in defense contracts, why then was someone like Margaret Alva your choice for Vice President? What do you have to say about this blast from the past India Today interview now going viral?
See, Rahul, the answer to your question is that democracy is alive in Congress party, and every Congress leader, is from the same democratic setup, and they can voice their concern whenever they wish to. I feel in today's situation, that more than 30 opposition parties, they have collectively sat together, they have deliberated on various candidates, and they have come to the conclusion, including Congress, that Margaret Alva should become the vice presidential candidate. So I don't see any harm in it, and neither any Congress leader has objected to it. Whatever views you are talking about, or whatever views are going viral on the social media, I feel those are things of the past, and being a democratic party, everybody has his turn to speak.
Rajdeep, this is democracy in action in the Congress. No congressman has objected. The likes of Shehzad Poonawalla and the BJP are objecting, but they would have objected to whoever the Congress would have put. Given Karan Thapar's interview, given all that's written in Rashid's book and his article this morning, given her past positions in the Gandhi family, why then did the Congress pick Margaret Alva as its vice presidential candidate?
You know, firstly, I read Rashid's piece, and I've watched Margaret Alva's past interviews. I've read her book. I think we are exaggerating that they have an acrimonious relationship between the Alvas and the Gandhis. Don't forget, Nikhil Alva, Margaret Alva's son, has been very close to Rahul Gandhi, has been part of his media team now for several years. Margaret Alva herself was chosen by Sonia Gandhi to attend the canonization of Mother Teresa when Sonia Gandhi was unwell. When Margaret Alva lost the 2009 elections, she was made a governor and became a governor in 3 different states. So I think it's a bit of an exaggeration to say they've had an acrimonious relationship. I think some of the comments that Margaret Alva made in her autobiography obviously stung the Gandhi family, alleged links between the Augusta-Westland deal and the Congress family. She has, even in the late 1970s, broken away in a way from Indira Gandhi and joined hands with the Devraj Arz group for a while, was close to Sharad Pawar, the person who we believe yesterday promoted her candidature. So you could argue she's had a mixed relationship with people within the Congress, but I would say she's remained by and large what you would call a Congress loyalist. And therefore I'm not surprised that given the bankruptcy of options within the opposition, I think that's really the issue. The fact that the opposition today seems to lack those kind of imaginative choices that they may well have had for both the president and vice president. They've chosen octogenarians who've been in politics for decades, rather than look maybe for someone who could have excited, if not the opposition ranks, knowing that the election was a dead certainty, but at least civil society. At least people who would have become talking points. So I think that's really where the focus should be. To my mind, Margaret Alva is from a state like Karnataka that goes to the polls in about 8 months from now. Minority member. I believe the opposition wanted to put forward a minority at a time when the BJP doesn't have a single Muslim candidate across both houses of parliament, try and make some kind of a point. But eventually you've chosen a safe candidate rather than someone who might have, in a way, as I said, galvanized civil society into becoming some kind of a talking point. The numbers are heavily stacked in favor of the BJP, so it's a done deal in that sense.
Shehzad, Rajdeep argues it's not as if they've had a terribly bad relationship. They've had ups and downs. Charan Singh Sapra says this is democracy in action. You can't criticize Modi and stay in the BJP, but you can criticize the Gandhis and still get picked as the Congress's vice presidential nominee. What's wrong with that?
No, look, first of all, making a virtue out of a necessity has become the traditional hallmark of the Congress party. But look, on the one hand, look at the candidates for president and vice president of the Bharatiya Janata Party and the NDA. We have history in the making, the first tribal woman president who is going to be elected to that position. On the other hand, the vice president candidate comes from a Kisan background. He comes from tough socio-economic circumstances, rose to the top in the legal and constitutional field, defended the constitution in West Bengal, and that is the kind of candidate we have. On the other hand, now what Mr. Sapra is dismissing off as allegations of the past, these are very serious allegations. I watched that entire interview time and over again. The tank scam where Indira Gandhi has been indicted. You had the first family's links with the Augusta Westland scamster Christian Michel, and the fact that his family has links with the Gandhi family, Wolfgang. She's referred to a parliamentary debate in which all of this has been mentioned. Apart from that, she has also made an allegation of selling of tickets in Karnataka in 2008. So I don't know how she is a great pick, but that is their prerogative to pick her. But here is what I want to say. I agree with Rajdeep partially, but Rajdeep has only said half through. It's not just bankruptcy of candidates, it is bankruptcy of ideas. Rajdeep's good friend Jairam Ramesh, from the last 4 days, look at what he has been up to. One day it is about national emblem, fake news peddling on that, then it is about the alleged word ban list, then it is about the alleged dharna ban, and today you have this picture that was put out by Mr. Jairam Ramesh, where he's saying, can you, candidate kaun hai? Now I have a question for my dear friend Charanjit Sapra. This is a picture where Sonia Gandhi, presumably because she's the elector and the proposer of then VP Hamid Ansari ji, is giving the thing to the nomination papers to the returning officer. I would like to ask candidate kaun hai? This is the level of intellectual bankruptcy when it comes to the Congress party, and this runs deep. And now finally, look at the contradictions and the convenience. It is politics of contradiction and convenience. Yashwant Sinha was accused of being involved in UTI scam by whom? Digvijay Singh. They wanted a CBI inquiry against him. Chidambaram ko bada fraudster kisne kaha? Yashwant Sinha ne. This only because they wanted to spite somebody, they made this person who has almost all his life had a BJP track record, an RSS track record, or at least BJP track record, not RSS. They made him the candidate and they pushed him forward, and look, they did not even go around campaigning for him. I mean, Rahul Gandhi was abroad, I believe. I'm not sure where he was. But Mamata Banerjee said that, you know, if we would have known Draupadi ji is the candidate, we wouldn't have. She never invited him to West Bengal. Jharkhand, where they have an alliance with JMM, dumped him and they said that we will choose somebody who's from the tribal community.
It's complete bankruptcy.
And just to make matters worse, they go ahead and they start insulting the candidate. They called her evil. And this is not being said by me. The JMM MLA, Mr. Nalin Soren, he objected to the Congress calling her evil and said, I'm going to take action against this. They called her rubber stamp, dummy. This is a person who has risen up from the ranks. She was a clerk. She went up. She contested elections, won the best MLA award. She served as a minister and the longest serving governor of Jharkhand. No easy feat because she maintained the relations between Rajbhavan and
Rashid Kidwai, to call this contradiction and convenient is one thing. The fact is that Margaret Alva has had a contentious relationship. She's been in and out of the Congress. She's been in and out of favor. In her interviews and memoirs, when she writes her book, Courage and Commitment, in August 2016, she's saying all kinds of things about Congress's connection with Augusta Westland scam accused Christian Michel's father, Wolfgang Michel. Why then was she picked? Is it just a complete bankruptcy of choices and ideas?
I think, Rahul, from the beginning, it's that Congress has been very half-hearted. As far as Gandhis are concerned, you didn't see them attending any meeting about selection of candidate of whether presidential nominee or vice president. The announcement also, came from Sharad Pawar, and supposedly he and Sitaram Yechury, etc., had proposed. If there is a Congress nominee and if she's Margaret Alva, then the Congress should have been far more proactive. I don't read much into what she has written because she has the right to learn and live. I mean, she's within her rights to whatever she wants to say, and the Congress had a opportunity to showcase itself that look how the BJP is looking for a kind of someone who's a loyalist, someone who doesn't speak up, somebody who would not have a very kind of critical view of the functioning of the government, etc. And whereas Congress has got somebody who's been a dissenter, who said things, who spoke not only against Sonia Gandhi or Indira Gandhi or Rajiv Gandhi, but against Narasimha Rao. Number of things I have put it that she spoke against Narasimha Rao and she said all kind of things. So it was a case of missed opportunity, I would say, of the Congress. Congress could have showcased itself by owning up Margaret Alva's candidature.
Shehzad, respond to that point by Rashid Kidwai. that it's not as if you only have to say good things to be in the good books of the leaders who matter. You could have been a dissenter, and yet the Congress gives you space which wouldn't happen in the BJP. Look at what you did with Yashwant Sinha. Look at how Subramaniam Swamy is out in the wilderness.
Rahul, then, I can even cite my personal example. All I said was, let's have an election in the Congress party. They did not need to throw me out from the Congress, and they would have kept all the other dissenters, including the G23. How many of the G23 members have been given proper accommodation or space to speak their mind in the party? So, Congress preaching about tolerance and democracy is like Kim Jong-un and Kim Jong's family preaching about democracy in North Korea. I think nobody buys that. And if they were so democratic indeed, then they should come out and tell us what is their stand on those people who dissent with them in the party. So, but they have taken action on those who have dissented with the High Command.
But what the presidential elections and the vice president's nomination shows is the fact that the opposition is in complete disarray. Rahul Srivastav. And many would use these elections to argue that if they can't even pick a worthwhile candidate, how in the world will opposition parties come together to try and declare one candidate per seat, which is what's been spoken of but never done in the 2024 elections against Prime Minister Modi and the BJP? And does that then mean that 2024 is a done deal?
Rahul, 2024 is far, but the fact is that when we discuss Margaret Alva, I think the story is much beyond what is emerging. You see, somebody who has had a bittersweet relationship got mended, I think, when Mrs. Alva's husband passed away. Rahul Gandhi had visited her, so there was some kind of a mending offences. But the fact is, as Rashid said, perhaps the most critical line now, it is not the Congress which picked up the Congressperson as a candidate. This is a repeat. When Pranab Mukherjee was picked up by Mulayam Singh Yadav, the Congress was not interested. It waited for something which never happened, and it is Sharad Pawar and Yechury who made it fair to comply for the Congress party. That Margaret Alva will be the candidate, whatever political messaging may happen in Karnataka or wherever. Some people say it is perhaps because there was nobody else ready to contest a losing battle. Margaret Alva might have said yes. Now, come to the story of the president election, Rahul. Congress does not have its weight or have the pelf now. It is Mamata Banerjee and TRS who decide who is going to be the presidential candidate. So the Congress again loses out. So the principal opposition party does not decide or has no strong say in the decision on the president or the vice presidential candidate in the country. It wants to challenge Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 24 and the elections, assembly elections before that. The Shiv Sena is a part of the troop which goes with Mr. Yashwant Sinha to file the nominations. If you recall, if you take out the pictures, the Shiv Sena members were there. Shiv Sena is voted for Draupadi Murmu. The Jharkhand Mukti Morcha is an ally of the Congress party, has voted against the opposition choice. You see the multiple levels of disarray. The NCP member in Gujarat has voted for Draupadi Murmu. You have Akalis voting. You see the crisis, Rahul, is the principal opposition party has lost tremendous space in this last 2 months, I think, on these two elections. Beyond that, the cohesiveness of the opposition is totally in disarray now. The question
but the bigger issue here, Rajdeep, seems to be that the Gandhis don't seem interested in taking the lead and shaping an opposition view on how to take on the BJP. Rahul Gandhi was holidaying once again. Some who are keeping tabs said his 5th holiday just this year. I don't think you or I together would have had so many holidays this year. And you've got a situation where both the president and the vice president choices are choices which have been foisted on the principal opposition by much smaller parties. What does this say about the big battle of 2024 in your view?
You know, until now it seemed as if the Congress was marginalized in its battle with the BJP. Now it appears that the Congress is getting slowly pushed to the sidelines, or is at least having to compete for space even within the opposition. Even within the opposition, the politics, the day-to-day politics is being done by the likes of Mamata Banerjee, Sharad Pawar and others, and not by the Congress. Who is there within the Congress to do that kind of day-to-day battle that you need to become the primary opposition party. Today, the Congress has 88 MPs between the two houses, which is substantially higher than either Mamata's party or Sharad Pawar's party, and yet Sharad Pawar's party or Sharad Pawar himself or Mamata Banerjee seem to carry greater clout or seem more involved in these decisions. It was Mamata who took the initiative to try and evolve a consensus around the presidential candidate. That it failed is another matter. Again, in this instance, it was Sharad Pawar and Sitaram Yechury who thought fit that let's at least try and give a challenge to the BJP on the vice presidential election. They tried to come across various names. I'm told Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, former Chief Election Commissioner, was among those suggested by Mr. Yechury. He declined. Then Mr. Sharad Pawar suggested Margaret Alva's name. So to my mind, what is clear is that the Congress and indeed the Gandhi family don't seem to be able now to establish their primacy even within the opposition space, and therefore leading up to 2024 the question will remain, how are you going to find any kind of opposition unity and who is actually going to lead the opposition? That is an open question, because now at the moment there seems no cohesiveness, no element of planning when the opposition could have used the presidential elections in particular, where the margins, remember, were much narrower. Vice President election is a done deal. BJP alone has 395 MPs in a 588 member electoral college. But in the presidential elections, where the margins were narrow, there could have been an attempt to find that kind of figure who could at least bring the opposition together. But the opposition singularly failed, threw up various names, most of whom refused to join in initially. And I think the limitation, therefore, Rahul, of the Congress becoming a magnet for the opposition are revealed as a result of what has happened.
You're saying the Gandhis are struggling to assert the primacy of the Congress in the opposition. I want to take that one step further by asking Charan Singh Sapra if they're even trying. Rahul Gandhi vacationing once again, completely disinterested in taking the lead, making the calls, building the connections. In the absence of Ahmed Patel, the Congress seems completely directionless, rudderless, uncertain of where to go, unable to even find a candidate who would do the Congress some proud. You've appointed Margaret Alva. People are questioning her comments against the Gandhis. You picked Yashwant Sinha. The likes of Shehzad Poonawala giving you a full chart sheet of what all he said about the Congress and what the Congress has said about him. You can't even get a basic candidate right, let alone trying to challenge the might of the BJP, Modi, Shah, Yogi, RSS all together. It's a no contest.
See, Rahul, generally the trend in Indian politics, whenever we have seen the presidential elections, even when we had elections of Pratibha Patil or Pranab Mukherjee, we have seen that the ruling party nominee or the candidate gets more than 4.5 lakh votes, and the opposition leader, whosoever he is, whether it was maybe Sangma or somebody else, they got below 3.5 lakh votes. So this is how the
you
trend
use this
is
as an
always
opportunity
there.
to bring opposition parties together. Your own ally, the Shiv Sena, your ally, the JMM, are picking Draupadi Murmu. Forget the BJP's allies. Even your friends are picking your opponents.
Yeah, so similar case was there when Congress candidate was Pratibha Patil or Pranab Mukherjee, when Shiv Sena voted for the Congress candidate, or when Nitish Kumar also did the same thing. So let me bring this to your notice that this has been happening on various occasions. It's not happening for the first time. Even when Congress was ruling or UPA was ruling, similar was the case. So what I'm trying to say, in the current scenario, the way Narendra Modi and Amit Shah or the BJP government has, throttled democracy by demolishing governments in Maharashtra or Karnataka or Madhya Pradesh, the way they have snatched Madhya Pradesh government. So there's a continuous process in which the democracy has been throttled. Modicracy has tried to prevail upon democracy, and this is why they are now at an advantageous position. But definitely,
Poonawala, respond to Charan Sapra. In the past, your allies, JDU, Shiv Sena, have also voted for UPA nominees for president, and therefore it's no big deal. It doesn't show the opposition is in tatters. 2024 is a different battle, says Sapra.
First of all, it's not a case of Modi-cracy versus democracy. It is about Congress being crazy about Modi. This craziness for one person is the reason for half of their ills. They just can't get over this, phobia of one person. Now, let me explain to you. Today, Rahul was making a very insightful point. The BJD, we are the principal competitors against BJD, right, in Odisha, but Correct. They have voted for us. We are principal competitors against Uddhav Sena in Maharashtra. They are voting for us. We are principal competitors against JMM in Jharkhand. They are voting for us. And we don't sit on arrogance that we 100 saal purani party hai. Even a person like O.P. Rajbar was contacted at various levels by the candidate and by our other leaders, and we fully requested all of them to come together, because this we consider as a historic moment. This is the people's president. APJ Abdul Kalam was one of our picks. Then we had Ramnath Kovindji and now Murmuji. So they can say whatever they like. 60% of our cabinet is SC, ST, OBC people. Our prime minister is from the OBC community, the longest serving OBC prime minister of this country. They can make all these allegations, but we thought that this is a historic moment. Everyone should participate. Secondly, they have not contacted even people that they are with. They have not taken Yashwant Sinha. One second, please, Charanjit, I don't think we need to interrupt each other. You have not even taken Yashwant Sinha to West Bengal. He is from TMC. You have not been able to convince your own people. So don't blame us. And if you think any agency or democracy has been throttled, I request Rahul to increase the time of the debate for 5 minutes. Charanjit can call up Hemant Soren right now during the debate and ask him what pressures he was facing, because of which he has changed his vote to Draupadi Murmuji. I ask him open challenge.
No, but there's a bigger problem. If Mamata Banerjee doesn't even invite Yashwant Sinha to come in campaign in West Bengal, despite Yashwant being a TMC nominee before he became the opposition's choice for president, that says a lot about the kind of people that you're picking. Rajdeep made an important point. Pick somebody whose civil society will be rallied by, somebody who says, okay, here is somebody who represents a secular, different idea of India from the idea that's being pushed by the BJP, by Prime Minister Modi and by the RSS. You couldn't even do that basic thing. You picked somebody who was actually a long-time BJP member. Mr. Sapra?
I think silence is the best answer.
Yeah, I got it. No, see, this is one part where you can, you can choose your words to say all this thing, but Congress and the opposition parties, they have taken a collective decision, and looking at the current scenario, they have taken this decision. I feel in the current scenario, Yashwant Sinha was the best candidate. You can always give examples, even if I can give example that Uddhav Sena, they are not voting for the presidential candidate, and they'll be voting for the vice presidential candidate, Margaret Alva. So there are similar cases in the past also. There will be such cases in the future also. I feel 2024 will be a different election. There will be a different scenario, and definitely Congress as the principal opposition party will have an upper hand, and different strategies will be worked out. And different strategies will be worked out collectively by the opposition parties.
It's a different election. We'll work out modalities with other opposition parties. It's a different context. Is it, according to you, so different, or it's really a continuation of what we are seeing right now? If they can't pick a candidate together, how will they pick candidates in 543 seats?
Look, I don't think, Rahul, we are ever going to have a Lok Sabha election where you will have 543 opposition candidates in a one-on-one fight with the BJP. I don't think that's going to happen. If the opposition or anyone believes that would happen, I think they're living in a fool's paradise. Across this country, there are so many sharp divisions that exist on the ground between a Mamata and the Congress in Bengal, between the TRS and the Congress in Telangana, these differences between the JMM to some extent and the Congress in Jharkhand. There are differences on the ground. Therefore, 543 candidates to be elected. The Aam Aadmi Party, another X factor, they want to also occupy the space. I think the real question, and I've raised this a few months ago as well, kaun banega principal opposition? That is a question that first needs to be addressed. You know, we took it for granted until now that only the Congress can be the principal opposition because the Congress's footprint is much larger than any other party. But as we are seeing, there are several states where there are enough opposition parties that will challenge that narrative of the Congress being the principal narrative. And until that issue is settled, how the opposition intends to provide a united front leading up to 2024 is a big question mark. They first need a narrative. They first need a narrative and idea to challenge the BJP. I agree to some extent with Shehzad that the opposition's only narrative has been anti-Modiism. That, you know, this obsession with Mr. Modi cannot be the sole reason to bring the opposition together. This is not, much as the opposition would like to tell you, not 1977. This is not that emergency mindset. There you had a Jaiprakash Narayan. There you were able to have leaders of stature within the opposition who could come together on one platform, the likes of Mr. Chandrasekhar, the likes of Morarji Desai, Jagjeevan Ram, the list was endless. Today the opposition doesn't have those kind of tall leaders who can actually come to the on one platform, both within the Congress and even outside it. So you're going to see a churning, I believe, within the opposition leading up to 2024, and I believe eventually this may well be settled in only in 2029, because it will take that much time before the opposition actually is able to throw up a great new idea that can challenge in a way what the BJP represents or what Mr. Modi represents. It's not just Mr. Modi the individual, it's about the idea that he and the BJP represent, that the opposition have to provide a counter narrative to make themselves
Rahul
attractive to a new
Srivastava,
India.
kaun banega principal opposition? Earlier the Congress seemed the likely shoe-in, now that seems disputable. Who do you think is likely to be the answer to that question that Rajdeep poses?
See, Rahul, if you analyze, Congress is still the only next to BJP pan-national party. There is no doubt about it. But when Congress says that the BJP has eaten up Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, no, Rahul, it is the Congress is doing. The Mamata Banerjee ate up the Congress. She was a Congress person. YSRCP ate up the Congress. That was Congress. When did you hear a senior Congress leader in Odisha after J.B. Patnaik or Girdhar Gamang? Have you heard of any Congress leader? No. They have not created leaders. They have lost leaders. The Congress's crisis has started long time back. The Congress hasn't addressed it. Now the problem for the Congress and the opposition is that the Congress's decline is leading to new startups. Mamata Banerjee in Bengal, Arvind Kejriwal, who has now gone unicorn with Punjab. The problem is that these are what Rajdeep is mentioning, that they were strong leaders. There is no Jaiprakash Narayan to bring them together. There is no strong reason for their coming together. And there are runaway ambitions right now, Rahul, which will not allow this opposition to come together. How can a leadership emerge when everybody is an equal claimant in a pie? Mamata Banerjee pushes Yashwant Sinha to emerge as a principal opposition. Sharad Pawar is playing the role of the man behind the curtains controlling the opposition. Rahul, it's not working out. The problem is, as Shehzad said, I agree, anti-BJP is where anti-Modism gives you mileage in newspapers and television channels. It does not create cadres and a movement against a leader. And that is why the leadership issue needs to be addressed by the opposition. Otherwise, 2024, Narendra Modi has to make a big mistake to lose it. Otherwise, it's game over.
But that's the problem with the Congress's approach. They're waiting for Modi and Shah and the BJP to make mistakes rather than trying to fashion a strategy of their own. And you can't build a party and a cadre sitting in Spain or wherever else some of these leaders have been holidaying. I want to wrap up this discussion. It doesn't bode well for the opposition challenge. And as a political journalist and as an analyst, all you want is a good fight. Doesn't matter who wins, nothing really turns for us. You want a good fight between equals, a barabar ki kushti, not this heavyweight sumo wrestler on the one side up against a piddi pehlwan, and it's just a one-way traffic. That's no fun, not even to report on, not to track. You need the opposition. Come on, Mr. Sapra, give it your best. And
if I may just sum up.
Yeah.
I would just suggest to my dear friend Charanjit that more than focusing on position, ambition and television, try learning vision and mission from Narendra Modi ji, and perhaps you will not do Pindadan of your opposition unity, like Matdan is over, but today it is Pindadan of your opposition unity led by Congress.
if you have a counter as good as that, give it back. Charan Singh Sapra, go for it.
See, in 2004 also, all the debates were going in this way only when we were talking about shining India. And even the BJP spokesperson were exaggerating on all the debates. But what happened? We won the election and nobody knew that Dr. Manmohan Singh will become the Prime Minister. So the same situation is there now. I feel the opposition collectively will come over it, and also you will see a good face which will represent the opposition party and who's going to challenge the BJP and Narendra Modi.
Okay, we'll see what happens. It's not looking like a very feisty election just to this moment, but it could come down to one big mistake. But are Messrs. Modi and Shah too astute? Because even when they make a mistake, they dial back very quickly. They don't let that mistake snowball, and that again is a big challenge. Anyway, it's an unequal fight this. You've got really relentless, intense boxers on the one side versus others who question whether they want to be boxing at all. And these kind of battles typically end just one way. To my guests, Shehzad Poonawala, Charan Singh Sapra, Rashid Kidwai, Rajdeep Sardesai and Rahul Srivastava for joining me on the Newstrack for your sharp political insights. Thank you very much.